Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Breaking Points. Ryan Graham, great to have you, my friends.
Always lovely to be here.
Lovely little commie takeover
That's
this
right.
morning, as promised. Lots to get to, for sure. We've got, actually, thanks to our friend Ken Klippenstein, some new details about this shooter at the ICE facility yesterday that ended up killing one migrant and critically wounding two others. So we'll break all of that down for you as far as we know at this point. We've also got some new moves from the Trump administration to charge Jim Comey and Letitia James. A lot going on there. Break down those details for you. We're going to have a live report from that Gaza aid flotilla. Actually, one of Ryan's colleagues is on board, so he is going to join us and give us an update as they have been under attack. We got another Ryan special for you. Actually met with the president of Iran while he was in New York, so you've got some details for us there, right?
Well, I wasn't here yesterday, so yeah, we can break down how they're feeling about the fact that they're about to get attacked again for no reason.
Yeah, well, that will be really interesting to hear from you on that. We're also tracking a story out of North Carolina with potential national implications. Ryan and Sagar covered earlier this week the way that electricity prices are skyrocketing in part because of the expansion of these AI data centers. Well, in North Carolina, they're now trying to move legislation to make sure consumers are bearing the additional costs of these AI data centers. So this is something you definitely want to pay attention to. And then, sticking with the AI theme, we have an expert joining us with a dire warning, as dire a warning as you could possibly get, from his book, If Anybody Builds It, Everyone Dies. I just actually finished listening to this book this morning, I was telling you, Ryan, and it's fairly persuasive, and it is deeply terrifying.
I would rather not be persuaded of that premise.
Maybe skip this book then, to be honest with you. Maybe skip this book because
I've read a bit about it, and I'm like, oh God.
Yeah, so you can see all the near-term effects of the use of the water and the skyrocketing of electricity prices and all of these and the consolidation of wealth and power, all of that. But his scenario is even bleaker, which is basically the end of humanity. So some uplifting content there at the end.
Will the memes keep getting made even after we're all gone?
After the apocalypse, will the super intelligence make memes? Probably so, but things in AI language that we would not
if we were here,
be
we wouldn't even
incomprehensible.
understand.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I guess that's the real tragedy here.
That is a real tragedy.
All right. Thank you to everybody who's been supporting us. BreakingPoints.com. If you're not already a member, you get access to the full Friday show. We've already got some interesting topics planned for then, but let's go ahead and get to what we know about this shooter yesterday in Texas, targeting a Dallas ICE facility. 3 migrants were shot. One of them is dead. 2 of them are critically wounded. That's the latest we know this morning. Let's go ahead and take a listen to a little bit of a law enforcement press conference from yesterday.
Today at approximately 6:40 a.m., we received a assist the officer call. We responded to the call, got to the scene, and we later learned that we had 4 individuals that were shot, 2 of them deceased, including the shooter. The DPD was able to locate the shooter who was deceased. We're going to be working this investigation shoulder to shoulder with our federal partners. The FBI is on scene.
I can confirm at this time that the FBI is investigating this incident as an act of targeted violence. What I can also share with you is that early evidence that we've seen from rounds that were found near the suspected shooter contain messages that are anti-ICE in nature. While we're not releasing identities of any victims at this time, what I can confirm for you is no members of law enforcement were hurt during this attack.
There are people out there who are seeing what is being placed online, and they're coming and they're doing acts of violence against ICE employees.
Your political opponents are not Nazis. We need to learn to work together without demonizing each other, without attacking each other.
So Ted Cruz moving there immediately to make a political point. You heard them say there that they found bullets that had anti-ICE messaging. As it turns out, we can put Kash Patel tweeted this out. This is what they're saying that anti-ICE messaging is, which it literally just says anti-ICE. Let me read from you his post here. And let's just also say, for the FBI director to just be tweeting out this unverified evidence is extraordinary and may create problems down the road in other, cases where you have future trial. But in any case, he says this morning, just before 7 a.m. local time, an individual fired multiple rounds at a Dallas, Texas ICE facility, killing one, wounding several others before taking his own life. FBI, DHS, ATF are on the ground with Dallas PD and state authorities while the investigation is ongoing. An initial review of the evidence shows an ideological motive behind this attack. See photo below, and that's of the bullet casing saying anti-ICE. One of the unspent shell casings recovered was engraved with the phrase anti-ICE. More updates will be forthcoming. These despicable, politically motivated attacks against law enforcement are not a one-off. We're only miles from Prairie Land, Texas. Just 2 months ago, bless you, Ryan, an individual ambushed a separate ICE facility targeting their officers. It has to end. The FBI and our partners will lead these investigative efforts to see to it that those who target our law enforcement are pursued and brought to the fullest extent of justice. Thankfully, no law enforcement personnel were injured. I guess they don't care as much about the migrants who were killed/injured. Please pray for the injured and deceased. Trump, of course, immediately seizing on this as well. Ryan can put this up on the screen. And J.D. Vance also, we have comments that we'll show you later, leaning into the idea of a explicitly political, ideological, radicalized attack here. Trump says, I've been briefed on the deadly shooting at the ICE field office in Dallas, Texas. It has now been revealed the deranged shooter wrote anti-ICE on his shell casings. This is despicable. The brave men and women of ICE are just trying to do their jobs and remove the worst of the worst criminals out of our country. But they are facing an unprecedented increase in threats, violence, and attacks by deranged radical leftists. This violence is the result of the radical left Democrats constantly demonizing law enforcement, calling for ICE to be demolished, and comparing ICE officers to Nazis. The continuing violence from radical left terrorists in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's assassination must be stopped. ICE officers and other brave members of law enforcement are under grave threat. We have already declared Antifa a terrorist organization. I will be signing an executive order this week to dismantle these domestic terror networks. I am calling on all Democrats to stop this rhetoric against ICE and America's law enforcement right now. Trump administration is fully committed to backing law enforcement, strong borders, securing our homeland, deporting violent illegal criminals, and fully rooting out the left-wing domestic terrorism that is terrorizing our country. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So, Ryan, obviously, the national mood is quite fraught at the moment. You just had the assassination live that we all watched with horror of Charlie Kirk. You have the Trump administration using his martyrdom to, grab additional national security powers. He references there the Antifa terror organization, terror designation for the Antifa organization, which isn't even a thing that really exists, but whatever. Now he's floating another executive order to dismantle these networks, whatever that means. A lot of rhetoric coming from the administration about a coming crackdown, and now feeding this new shooting into that narrative to further justify this power grab.
Yeah, and the problem for Trump is that there's no evidence that, quote unquote, any networks or any progressive Soros-run institutions, had anything to do with this shooting or with the shooting of Charlie Kirk. That it would almost be hopeful in a way, like, oh, we found the networks that are doing this.
We can disrupt it.
We found their funders,
their funding,
their leaders. We're gonna round them up. They're breaking the law. They're trying to run a little insurrection here. We're gonna roll them up and put them all in jail. We almost wish that was the case. It's not. And so Ken Klippenstein, we can put this up on the screen. Ken is his new beat. Apparently, is being the only one to do any reporting in the wake of these killings, and he was able to talk to 3 friends of Joshua John,
who was identified as the shooter and who took his own life.
And what's interesting, and is a caveat for his reporting that he makes in the piece, none of them had been friends with him in recent years. So there's still a lot to be learned about his last year or two. Mm-hmm. But what they described is a person who spent his time on the 4chan, which is, how would you even describe it? It's like a right-coded, irony-laden, nihilistic den of young men.
Yes.
Basically.
Yeah.
And that's where edgelords gather. And they say edgy things. They push them. They say things they don't mean in order to get a rise out of people. They shield themselves in all of this irony. What his friend said is that his edgelord online behavior began to bleed into his in real life personality.
Yeah.
And it was just brutally obnoxious. Like, he was insufferable to be around.
Yeah.
And so people stopped suffering him.
Which is why, and they even say, like, if you're having trouble finding anyone who associated with him in recent years, this is why.
Because they don't exist.
Because we all withdrew from
didn't
him
have
because,
any
he was too much to take.
And so how does he go from there? And then, so when everybody saw the shell casings that Krystal put up earlier that had in blue marker written anti-ice,
Yeah.
the entire world was like, are you not even trying?
Like, really?
This is utterly absurd. First of all, left-wing people don't say anti-ice.
Right.
They say F ICE, abolish ICE, something like that. I've never heard them say anti-ICE.
No, and
Like,
yeah.
That's almost too parliamentarian. It's
Right.
like, it's too establishment to just say you're anti-ICE. No, it's not. Now, his friends say, if that's authentic markering on those shell casings, it's ironic. It's like, it's him sending some ironic message that is, and the purpose of it in some ways is what's going on right now with us two boomers here discussing like 4chan irony and meme culture on,
Like we're
on a serious
anthropologists.
platform, like we're anthropologists. They love that because it's so ridiculous.
It's
so absurd.
It's a violent real world shitpost in a way.
Yeah.
To get everybody to, what does it mean and what were his politics, and to create just a mess. I mean, it's it could be seen as like accelerationist potentially as well. But I was telling you, Freddie DeBoer wrote a fantastic piece in the wake of the Tyler Robinson assassination of Charlie Kirk about this, the previous trend that we tend to, have internalized is there's some existing ideology, and then the violent act flows out of that, ideology. And this is more like there's an absence of there's an absence of meaning, and the killings are meant to create a meaning. And, I think Tyler Robinson, it's still a question mark to me whether he fits into that, because there seems to have been some sort of the genuine concern
like
over
single
Charlie
issue,
Kirk's
yeah.
single issue kind of fixation. But on that same day, you had this neo-Nazi, more right-wing school shooter. But again, it was all this like internet gobbledygook, memeology. So was he really a sort of through and through ideological neo-Nazi? It seems more like it came out of this same sort of fever swamp. And he modeled himself on another school shooter who was very similar with internet memes. The trans shooter that got so much attention in Minneapolis because of their gender identity, similar thing. Like, they put up a video with over 100 different weird online memes and symbols and all kinds of crap. So there seems very much to be a trend here. And I want to read a little bit from Ken's piece, because just so you get the specifics of what the friends were saying, and we're not just paraphrasing. So Ken writes, none of Joshua Jan's former friends believed that the anti-ICE inscription could possibly be sincere, feeling such a serious political statement was anathema to who Jan was. His humor was deeply ironic, often offensive and aggressive to the point of alienation. He was most certainly an edgelord, an irony guy, one friend said, edgelord being online speak for someone who likes to espouse edgy nihilistic views. Asked about the inscription on the bullet, the friend said, Josh was an edgelord who wanted someone to get blamed. I think he tried his best to write something goofy to rile people up. Another friend showed me a Facebook post describing how Jan had flooded his friend's comment section with rape jokes, quote, playful shock humor, the friend said. Jan's profile on the gaming platform Steam showed that the vast amounts of time he spent playing video games, particularly shooters, more than 6,000 hours on Rust, 3,000 on Team Fortress 2, and 1,000 on Left 4 Dead 2. Even found time to play 3.5 hours in the past 2 weeks, which sounds like a real downtick in his video game playing time, only 3.5 hours. That's nothing. Among the dozen or so usernames he used was one reading hashtag impeachment. When I asked if this was not a clear reference to anti-Trump politics, his friends recoiled recoiled at the idea he would express opposition to Trump so sincerely and straightforwardly. Instead, they saw it as part of the broader ironic persona, poking fun at anti-Trump resistance types. Now, they do say that he did not like Trump.
So,
and that
not a fan of Trump.
Yeah, but that he also didn't like any politicians. The only politician they mentioned him having spoken favorably of was actually Ron Paul. They said, if anything, they'd pin his politics as more libertarian. So look, again, your caveat is important that these are people who have disassociated with this guy for a couple years. But we do also have his brother coming out and saying something similar about, like, he didn't really care about ICE. He wasn't really particularly political. And so clearly, and you also have an administration, you know, that you can't trust. Like, the FBI is completely political and run by an incompetent moron and fool, which is why so many people, the minute that the, you know, anti-ICE bullet casings drop, are like, there's fucking no way that that's real. I actually, now that I've seen this reporting, I actually am more willing to buy that that is legitimate, because it is such a weird thing to write, anti-ICE, that it does feel like something a shit poster would do.
Just messing with you.
Just messing with you, exactly. So in that frame, like with Ken's framing here, it actually does make more sense to me that that could actually be something that's real.
And in the end of it, though, our attempt to like make any sense of this is always going to be broken by the fact that this is a person who went and took the life of at least one person, put two in critical condition, ironically.
Right.
And it's just impossible as somebody who is like just still, you know, well-grounded, to identify with that. Like, you can go back and read about like far-right like violence or far-left violence in Europe and like Italy and Germany against the fascists or whatever. And you say, I wouldn't want to participate in that myself, but I get it. Like,
right.
This makes rational sense in
There was
in
an
the, in the like
existential
arc
threat.
of human history.
Yeah.
It's just impossible to get to a place where you can understand like how you go from where he was to like, I'm gonna get a rifle and ironically shoot up an ICE building when I don't even like care about ICE that much. And I'm gonna care so little about it that I'm actually going to kill detainees.
Right. And troll with the bullet casing. A lot of people were noting, I don't know a lot about guns, guys, but they called this like a stripper clip, where these were intentionally left, right? They were not used and sort of like just intentionally left there. Yeah. And so this, like, assuming this is like, if we're taking the government's word for it and this is legitimate, that was an intentional statement, like a troll, but in the most disgusting, violent way imaginable. And so, Ryan, I know if Sagar was here, we would be having probably a debate at this point, because we've already had several versions of this debate about, you know, he would go down this degeneracy, video games. You know, we don't know anything about this guy's like porn habits in particular, but he'd say porn addiction. Like, there's a
lockdown. Like this kid suffered through, you know, the lockdown, the COVID lockdown.
Sagar doesn't usually bring that part up,
should.
but that could go along with this as well.
It turbocharges all of the other things.
But he's more inclined to go in the direction of like, we've got to cut off the video games, we've got to like regulate porn, we need to, you know, he's more in that camp. And I am in the camp of, you have to deal more with the root causes. Like, the whole world has the internet. Many Asian cultures are much more game addicted than we are and spend a lot more on video games, a lot more time on video games than we do. And yet we're the only country that has only developed country that has these routine mass shootings, routine school shootings. So there's something specific to the American political context that is creating this. And so I'm curious what your view is on kind of the underlying factors that are leading to now we have these repeated instances of these sort of black pill nihilist edgelord killers.
To me, one of the only explanations, well, first of all, this guy's got a gun. Like in a lot of countries, this guy doesn't have any access to a gun.
Yeah.
It's just like the idea that he could even get one to to this kid in most countries would be absurd.
Yeah.
Like it's just not possible.
Have a gun. His brother says he wasn't a great marksman, but that he grew up in a gun culture. Like he was used to handling firearms from a young age. Obviously, Tyler Robinson, even to a greater extent, grew up in like, you know, sort of extreme, what I would call extreme gun culture. There's all sorts of family photos of them, you know, with various weaponry, et cetera.
Right. So that's one obvious distinction. The other has to be something about hopelessness and a lack of meaning.
Yeah.
Which is ironic because if you look at just straight up, you know, wealth, GDP, et cetera, like the United States compared to every other country is doing better.
Right.
But there's something about the direction of the country and people's sense of whether or not their futures are going to be better than the last generations that makes it so it doesn't matter what the absolute score is. Whether like, okay, this guy had, you know, a lot of people around the world would love to be able to, you know, have the video game console or consoles that he had and access to a nice TV and like all the things that allowed him to play the thousands of hours of games. But at the same time, those, like he also must have had, forget him, like in general, Americans have like a deep sense of hopelessness about the future. And so it doesn't really, so it's just telling them, well, you're doing better than people in Thailand.
Yeah.
They're like, well, I don't care. Like,
right.
I feel miserable.
Yeah, I mean, it's a seeming decline in living standards because while there's a plethora of sort of like inexpensive items available, the key building blocks, housing, education, healthcare, more and more expensive. I think that, you know, being in the tail end of neoliberalism here has hit men harder than women in a way because so much of men's like the cultural value, what the culture says to men is like, you're a man if you can provide. And then it's so difficult to be able to do those things, to be able to have the job, have the, you know, the family, do the thing that your parents and grandparents did. And so, and of course you guys know, none of this is like justifying, it's just trying to grapple with like what the hell is actually going on here because it's very difficult, as you said, to understand. It's actually impossible to understand, but I think we have enough data now to say that there is some broader, deeply troubling trend that's then this is something that Sagar has said, like, it would be more comforting if it was like a Weather Underground sort of situation. We're like, here's the Antifa network, and we're going to disrupt them, and we're going to...
Here's what they want.
Yeah, we're going to J. Edgar Hoover them, and, you know, we can get to the sources of funding, we can deal with this. This is this sort of widespread cultural, social phenomenon, and there's no reason not to expect it's going to continue to expand and proliferate, which is what is so terrifying. And one of the things that Freddie DeBoer also writes in his piece, which we should put a link to and probably get Freddie on like next week to talk about as well, but that, you know, the school shooters, like that's become such a part of the background noise of American society that it barely gives you like whatever infamy and like, you know, sick meaning making that you're trying to apparently achieve with these random acts of violence. And so the sort of school shooter phenomenon may be expanding now into these like political assassinations and political attacks, and that the profile of these sort of killers looks actually very similar to the, you know, the typical school shooter kind of profile.
Yes, and he was 29 years old, which is actually getting a little on the older side for these shooters.
Yeah.
But again, you know, 5 years of the pandemic, you know, I think upended a lot of people, you know, who are now 29. He was 24 when he goes into it. Now he's 29, and as his friend said, over the last several years, like he became a completely obnoxious guy. But I think you're exactly right that like the phenomenon that we've understood for 20 years of the school shooter type is moving into other types of things now. The school shooter mulcher, and you know, Dallas is only it was 2016 when the guy shot killed 6 police officers, 5 or 6 police officers. Remember that? This giant shootout
that's
in 2016 in Dallas. Which again, like, if that happened one time in France, you know, it'd be like they'd remember it for 100 years.
Yeah, and try to do something about it.
Yeah.
Whereas we know no one's going to do anything about it. And another factor that I think has to be added to the mix is obviously like mental illness knows no national boundaries, but we have a vast amount of untreated mental illness here, both because of cultural stigma around seeking help and a lack of universal health care and a insufficient amount of inpatient beds and mental health resources more generally for people. So I think that's part of it too. So in any case, let me just put up these last few pieces that we have about what we know regarding Joshua Jan. Put A5 up on the screen. So he also, in addition to the anti-ice engraved bullet casing, we also have this bizarre map that was stuck to the outside of his car that showed radioactive fallout across the U.S. Don't know what that's all about, but in any case, that, it feels like something a schizophrenic would like send to one of our houses, frankly. But in any case, that's one of the things that they found as well. We could put the next piece up on the screen. I mentioned his brother. Again, early days of finding out what this, to the best we can possibly understand what was going on with Joshua Jan in the days and years leading up to this murder spree. The brother says, I don't think he was politically interested. Talking to NBC News, he wasn't interested in politics on either side as far as I knew. Didn't have strong feelings about ICE as far as I knew. He did. This is important to know. He did vote, and everybody's, of course, going to look at the social media profile and what can we glean about this guy. He voted in Texas's Democratic primary in 2020. That's the only record that we have of him voting in any election. So it was in a Democratic primary. The brother also said that Joshua Jan knew how to shoot. Their parents owned a rifle, but that Joshua was not a skilled shooter. Apparently he lived and, was born and raised in a suburb of Dallas. Joshua was interested in moving to property his parents owned in Oklahoma. The brother said, quote, he's not a marksman. He would not be able to make any shots like that. Photos of the rifle rounds, they said, found near Joshua's body suggest he used an antique rifle chambered in a high-power round similar to the gun that was used to kill Charlie Kirk. And if it was before a certain date, it would not have had a serial number. That was one of the things that we learned about the rifle that was used to murder Charlie Kirk, is that it was like his grandpa's rifle, potentially like World War II era rifle, and did not have serial numbers because it predated the law that required serial numbers on these firearms. And
the shooting itself lends credence to what his brother is saying, and also to what all of his friends are saying, that he, like, if you're saying like he's A, not a good shot, but also B, didn't have strong feelings about ICE or anything. He fired into the building itself just indiscriminately and did not hit or hurt anybody inside the building. He then fired on a van that was just on the street. And it was one of these transport vans where they're moving detainees
filled
around.
With migrants, yeah.
And that's where he struck 3 people, killing 1 and critically wounding 2. So, right, so just in his mind, he's just on this roof, and he's just looking down. He aims at a van and aims at an entire building, which kind of does align with the idea that he's just creating a spectacle. Yeah. That there's no real plan here.
I think a lot of people who are on the right in our audience and elsewhere will look at this and say, you guys are coping. The bullet says anti-ICE. Like, you just don't want it to be one of yours. And so you're making up all this like nihilist edgelord stuff. And that's certainly the direction that the administration is going in. We showed you a little bit of Ted Cruz there instantly at the press conference. And J.D. Vance also gave a speech yesterday and, also using these killings and claiming that, left-wing violence is out of control and we're going to crack down, and going directly after Gavin Newsom in particular. Let's go ahead and take a listen to A7.
Because here's what happens when Democrats like Gavin Newsom did say that these people are part of an authoritarian government. when the left-wing media lies about what they're doing, when they lie about who they're arresting, when they lie about the actual job of law enforcement, what they're doing is encouraging crazy people to go and commit violence. You don't have to agree with my immigration policies. You don't have to agree with Donald Trump's immigration policies. But if your political rhetoric encourages violence against our law enforcement, you can go straight to hell, and you have no place in the political conversation of the United States of America.
So Ryan, for me, I'm very worried about the underlying trend of these killings, and I'm also very worried about what this government is going to use these killings in order to effectuate. And it won't be the first time that either one of us has lived through some sort of a, authoritarian crackdown in service of quote unquote safety. And look, these people, Stephen Miller, J.D. Vance, Donald Trump, they make no bones about the fact that they view anyone left of center as their political opponents to be crushed, and have made it a habit. Like the storyline of this administration is using either real or imagined emergencies in order to grab more and more power. We already have the Antifa executive order. There's apparently some other executive order coming out. Ken has been reporting about the way that they're, creating new categories of quote unquote domestic extremism. So that is the landscape that we're in right now. And of course, we also covered this week the, speech crackdown on Jimmy Kimmel and the fallout from that. I will say I'm very heartened that the backlash to that actually ended up having some teeth, and ABC Disney felt pressured enough to bring him back on air. And they're apparently putting pressure on both Sinclair and Nexstar to stop preempting his programming as well. I think the fact that you had that grassroots pushback and it was successful is a really important development. But what do you make of the administration's approach here?
Is J.D. Vance listening to himself? He's saying, if you're somebody who is going to use disturbing rhetoric about the other side, you can go to hell and you have no place in our politics.
I know.
I'm sorry, what?
Right.
What are you talking about here? Like that?
And I feel like with him,
you can go to hell. And this is not a poster on 4chan. This is a vice president of the United States.
I feel like he is intelligent enough that he says things like that he knows you and I will lose our minds over. Like, you literally just said, don't do the violent rhetoric, and then you did the violent rhetoric.
Go to hell, you have no place in our politics.
I think he and Stephen Miller both do that intentionally to quote unquote trigger us. But I mean, I do it's in some ways, I don't know if it's the least important point, but on the politics of this, I do wonder if Republicans are going to get what they want out of this, when I don't think the Republican Party led by Donald Trump is exactly known for their mild, careful rhetoric, civility, attention to detail and accuracy in all things. That's not really what they're known for at this point. So, but they really are trying to apply this double standard of we can call you fascist, we can call you commies, we can say you're evil, literal demons who should be destroyed and go straight to hell, but you can't, accurately describe what we're doing. If you call us authoritarians while we're doing an authoritarian crackdown, well, you just want us to be murdered.
And so if the Democratic Party did not exist, which for all intents and purposes, nowadays, it actually doesn't. If there was no national media whatsoever, what the public would still see would be these social media posts and the press conferences put together by this administration, which includes routine ASMR videos of people in handcuffs and chains, which includes multiple members of the administration and in Congress standing in front of human beings stacked on top of each other in that torture chamber down in El Salvador, which includes street footage of a female student, Rumeysa Ozturk, in Somerville, Massachusetts, getting dragged off the street and shoved into a van by masked agents, which includes all of the videos we've seen of people, of all of the violence that's taking place all over the country.
Yeah.
Like that.
National Guard in the streets,
and
all of that.
We would see all of that without a single Democrat saying the F word or the G word, or without the media talking about it. And the final is this kid, Yan, he's not the type that cares what Democrats say. He obviously hates Democrats and Republicans.
You don't think he was inspired by Gavin Newsom?
Gavin Newsom, yes. He's a giant Gavin Newsom fan. And when Gavin Newsom speaks, he marches.
I mean,
No,
Democrats
it's like-
literally don't inspire anyone. So,
Right? I think yes, they can't.
killer or none. So,
Right. So there is a reality, and J. Vance says, well, you can disagree with our immigration policy. Okay, well, like what words are you allowed to use to disagree with it? And but it clearly has become like a main thing. So if this kid is looking for some spectacle, 29-year-old kid is looking for some spectacle, the big thing is, particularly in Dallas, I'm sure there's ICE everywhere, and so if that's what they're looking for is attention. So I would just say, like, I would caution people in assuming that like any of these types of people have any respect whatsoever for Democrats and care what they say about ICE.
yeah, I think that's well said.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.